checking how old it is, so I'm out.
Can we put some on the desk, Trey? I don't know if it's old. In front of the dish.
Elbow guys. Who farms at elbow?
Wamsies. Jane usually talks to
Welcome,
him
everybody. We're just
Prospects.
letting people in and we'll get the meeting started in about 5 minutes.
about Wampus. We were talking about them.
Yeah.
And the bees.
And a piece. Yeah.
And if you
Bristol.
are on the call,
Bristol.
you may want to mute your microphone for now.
That's actually a good one.
And again, just want to welcome everybody. We'll get started in about 4 minutes. And feel free to put your cameras on so we can see some faces. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark. Mark's the only one with camera on, so we can say hi to Mark.
We love to see the friendly faces, so don't be shy. So we did get quite a few registrations. I know some people were unable to make it, so we will be recording the session and sending out the recording afterwards. Looks as though we got about 61 people, but there is well over 100 that registered for today, so thank you. And again, a couple more minutes, we'll get started. How's the weather where you are today, Mark?
It's minus 29 this morning when I went to work at 7:30.
Okay, and sorry, where are you from again, Mark?
Shane, Manitoba.
Okay. Well, I'm out here in the national capital and it was a not beautiful day. Lots of snow though.
Looks like the weather's going to break here on the weekend. They're talking
Good.
-1. So
Not clear.
Perfect.
We're really going to -1? Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
yeah, this cat's ice fishing on Saturday.
Awesome. Whereabouts are you going, Mark?
Lake Winnipeg.
Okay.
So no one ever tells you where your fishing spot is, so you just got to talk in general terms.
Gotcha.
Well, it is a Festival de Voyageurs happening in Winnipeg, so lots of fun outdoor activities.
Yes, been there many times, but ice fishing's calling me, so I'm going there.
Yeah, here in Ottawa, we just finished up our winterlude and I didn't make it there this year. It's a little too cold. Did you get there, Justine? Did you get to winterlude? No.
Nope, never been.
Never been. Oh
Not
no.
here.
Oh, that's right,
Never.
because you're a little bit further. You're not right in
Yeah.
Ottawa. That's right.
No, I'm a lot further. I'm in Windsor.
Well, we have 86 people who have joined us. I don't know if we want to wait a few more minutes out of respect, but it is 1 o'clock and I also do want to respect those who are on the call. So what do you think, Myrna?
I have 11:59.
Oh, do you? Oh, I got it 1 o'clock.
I don't know.
Here in Ottawa, we are an hour or a minute and an hour ahead of you.
I can get started. My phone says it's 1 or 12,
Okay.
I guess. So yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, my name is Myrna Gron, and I'm the new executive director for CAAR, the Canadian Association of Agri-Retailers. And we're really excited to be able to celebrate our 30th anniversary this year across Canada. And part of the new activities that we're doing are these CAAR Connect information sessions. And so you're joining our very first one, and we plan to have them once a month, probably not in May and June, those insanely busy seasons for you, but we do want to have sessions like this that you learn something, you have an opportunity to engage and ask questions of the presenter. So please send us some topics, whether they be regulatory or human resources or whatever some of the key topics you'd like to learn more about. We'll ensure that we can bring in an expert and set those up. And hopefully to be able, like I said, doing those once a month. The other thing that we're doing to celebrate 30 years is we have a membership drive right now. So for any of you who may not currently be members of the Canadian Association of Agri-Retailers, we have a 50% discount. And so you can definitely reach out. I believe Micah Manexa, our membership chairperson, is on, or our membership manager is on the call. I don't know, Micah, if you're showing your screen at the moment and can say hi so people can see you. No? Okay. Um, because Micah can help you get set up in our new CRM sort of Member 365 portal. Another exciting thing is our convention, November 18th to 20th. So keep posted for some really great speakers and 30th anniversary celebrations. And I really want to also promote Lisa Siragusa, who's our training manager coordinator. She is going to be setting up these sessions. I'm going to turn it over to you right away, but I do want to promote our March 13th. Next session will be with Terry and Paul. They're both with CropLife Canada, and they're going to be talking about PMRA's activities and maybe bring in a little bit of the regulatory 101 that they do. And then on April 3rd, we're going to have Greg Bartley with Pulse Canada, and he's going to be talking about Keep It Clean and some of the maximum residue levels required there. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Lisa, and thank you again for joining us.
Hello again and welcome. So so the format for these sessions is, again, want it to be somewhat interactive. And I know that we got 109 people, that's including us, already on this call. But we're going to have a presentation about 20 to 30 minutes. And then thereafter, what we're going to do is we are going to open it up for some question and answers. Again, we may not get to all the answers, but what I'm going to suggest that when we do get to that session, there's a little raised hand icon at the top of your bar. For me, it's the third one, the fourth one in, but it might be different on your screen. But if you do have a question and you want to ask it verbally, then put up your hand, just like Mark just demonstrated. And then at which point that will also show me who's in the queue, and hopefully I can get to you in order. Conversely, if you're shy or if we don't get to everybody, please put your question in the chat. So for me, again, my chat button is the first one on the top bar. So print or type in your question there, and I will go back and forth from hands up to chat questions, and we'll get as many as we can addressed. And again, if we don't get to them all, we'll do a follow-up thereafter. A couple of more housekeeping. Just please keep your microphone muted, just so that we are doing a recording of this, will be sent out as I mentioned, but it's just we can have no distraction while the presenting is going on. But of course, when it's your turn to speak up, please unmute your microphone. And then also during that question and answer period, we want to reiterate that it's some respectful questions. Just be courteous with your questions, and we want this to be as interactive and informative for everybody that's involved.
Lisa,
So,
I did also want to say
yeah.
Micah has her camera on. I scrolled forward, and so
Thank
if you
you.
guys scroll around, you'll see Micah. She'll give you a little wave, and she's our membership relations coordinator. We also have some CAAR board members. You can see Mark Davey. I saw Craig. So there's a number of them also on this call as well, or this meeting. Back to you, Lisa.
No problem. Excellent. So I'm just going to introduce Justine, and then she can get on with her presentation. So I'm just going to read this. So my apologies if I'm not looking right at my camera. But Justine Taylor is an Executive Director of Stewardship and Sustainability for CropLife Canada. In this role, Justine supports both industry stewardship efforts and as the Executive Director of the Agrichemical Warehousing Standards Association, and contributes to a larger sustainability effort of Canada's plant science sector. Justine comes from this role after nearly 10 years in the greenhouse sector, covering science and government relations issues for the Ontario greenhouse vegetable growers. A keen supporter for collaboration, Justine contributes to several cross-sectoral initiatives and sits on several local volunteer boards in her hometown of Windsor, Ontario. Justine holds a PhD from the University of Alberta with a focus of analytical chemistry. And I'm going to add, because it's not here, Justine just graduated with her MBA from the Sprott School of Business here in Ottawa. So that you're going to have to update your bio, Justine. So that,
Apparently.
that being said, I'm going to now just hand it over to Justine. Go ahead, Justine.
Thanks, Lisa. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Can everybody see that okay? I see heads nodding.
Absolutely.
So
Yes. Go right ahead.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much, Lisa, for the introduction. I have to be honest, I really did not expect so many people on this webinar. So, I think you can think of this as a very easy introduction to the webinar series. This is relatively light material, relatively straightforward. We likely won't take up the whole time, but I've never had anybody complain about ending a webinar early. So hopefully you find some useful information. Okay, so just a quick introduction to CropLife Canada. So CropLife Canada represents the Canadian developers, manufacturers, and distributors of plant control and modern plant breeding products. You can see our members' logos below here, and I'm sure you are familiar with many of our members. So CropLife Canada has a strong commitment to and a long history of delivering stewardship programs that mitigate risks associated with the manufacture, storage, use, and disposal of our members' products. So we have a range of programs, starting off with responsible product development, where we deliver training through the University of Saskatchewan on conducting confined field trials. We also have a number of transparent product launch programs. So we have a best practices document for the launch and commercialization of plant breeding innovations, as well as supporting a publicly accessible database of commercially available seeds developed through biotechnology. Moving on to our core supply chain programs, I suspect these are the programs that you are most familiar with. We have safety standards for the treatment of seeds, for the production and manufacture of pesticides, as well as for pesticide storage under the warehousing program. We've also delivered a number of programs aimed at safe and sustainable use. So we have our best practices for managing resistance to pesticides. This is done through our Manage Resistance Now program. So this is really a grower-focused program. We also deliver training on safe and effective use of pesticides through our Certified Crop Science Consultant course. This is delivered through the University of Saskatchewan, and it's really aimed at our members' staff who are making direct agronomic recommendations to farmers. Excuse me. And lastly, we have our new stewardship standards for the use of pesticides in greenhouses. So this is our Protected Ag program. And lastly, we have our responsible end of life cycle management programs, many of which are now directly managed by Clean Farms. And I'm sure I don't need to tell you about their container collection programs or their collection of obsolete stocks. But really, the heart of our effort are our flagship programs, which are our longstanding supply chain programs. So that brings us to the Agrichemical Warehousing Standards Association, or AWSA. So AWSA is a separate entity funded and operated by CropLife Canada. It was established in 1995, so it's also our 30th year anniversary, so good for us. The mission of AWSA is the continuous improvement of agrochemical warehouse performance in Canada through the establishment of standards to improve environmental protection, working conditions, and business risk. It's managed by a board of warehouse operators, manufacturers, distributors, and government all working together. And it's really focused on the delivery of quality auditable programs. So to achieve this, we recruit, train, and manage an auditor workforce, all of whom are private independent contractors and not direct employees of AWSA. And we currently deliver 7 programs, both for CropLife Canada as well as Fertilizer Canada. So that brings us to our warehousing standard. So this is the longest running of our program, and I suspect this is the one that you're most familiar with under the AWSA banner. The scope of the program. So the program captures the storage of products classified as agricultural or commercial, including ag retailers, distributors, and custom applicators. It doesn't apply to end users or farmers, etc., nor to animal products, nor to domestic products. The program or the standards themselves include requirements for siting, structure, operations, training, documentation, employee knowledge, emergency response, bulk storage, and insurance. And since the implementation of the program in 1995, warehouse fires have decreased by more than 90%. So it's fair to say it's a very successful program. In terms of implementation, sites are audited every 2 years by a third party. We currently have approximately 1,280 sites that are certified nationally. And there is, like all of our programs, there's a strong focus on continuous improvement and awareness. And what that means is that we are actively responding to concerns and risks as they appear. So that brings us to the topic of this webinar. So in December of 2023, Health Canada's ROBI, so that's the Regulatory Operations and Enforcement Branch Department, flagged concerns with us about ag retail awareness and signaled an intent to initiate compliance activities within the agrichemical warehousing industry. So ROBI essentially delivers compliance and enforcement for PMRA, the Pest Management Regulatory Agency. So the specific concerns that they raised were about the unknowing sale of products that had either been canceled or had had their labels amended, and products with the old labels were being sold beyond the implementation date. They were concerned that these changes, so the cancellations and the label changes, may not have been adequately communicated to ag retailers, and that the ag retailer responsibilities under the Pest Control Products Act, so the PCPA, were either not understood or not being enforced. So let's take a step back. We're going to do a little bit of a cancellation and amendments 101, just to give you an idea of what these processes mean and what it means for you. Keeping in mind, I am not a regulatory expert. I am the stewardship person. So some of these topics will be covered in more detail in future webinars by our regulatory team. So periodically, PCPs undergo review and evaluation. So PCPs are pest control products. And what this specifically means is that all PCPs are required to be reevaluated on a 15-year cycle as per the PCPA. And there also may be special reviews when certain statutory triggers are met, when there's an evolving risk that needs to be addressed. So the results of these reviews can either be a cancellation of all or some uses, it can be a label change, or for the special reviews, it could be no change. So if we look at what results as a result, or what happens as a result of these changes, we'll start first with cancellation. And this is the wording that PMRA uses in their decision documents. So when our decision results in a cancellation of a pesticide for which risks of concern are not considered imminent or serious, existing stocks of products can be phased out following these timelines. So 1 year of sale by registrants from the date of the RVD or SRD. So that's essentially the decision that's been made by PMRA. So 1 year after the decision, registrants can continue to sell product for 1 year. The next timeline trigger is sale by distributors and retailers, and they have 1 year after registrants. So they essentially have 2 years from the date of the decision document to continue to sell products. And then in terms of users, so last date of use is 1 year beyond the retailer timeline. So essentially 3 years. So 1 year for registrants to phase out sales, 2 years for distributors and retailers to phase out sales, and end users have 3 years to stop using the product. So these are the general guidelines. I will say that if there is determined to be an imminent and serious risk, these timelines can be expedited. So you don't always necessarily get the 3 years. So for the label amendments, so if there's a label amendment required as a result of a re-evaluation or a special review decisions, registrants typically have up to 2 years from the decision date to amend the labels. Once that period is over, distributors and retailers must only sell the pesticide with the amended label. So here we don't have the 3 timelines, we just have a single 2-year block from the decision date that both registrants and distributors and retailers must transition to selling the product with an amended label. So it's really critical that you're aware of these requirements under the PCPA. You are, as ag retailers, one of the regulated parties, and if found in violation, you could be subject to compliance actions. So product that is beyond its last sell date must be removed from shelves. So this could include disposal or shipping back to the manufacturer or the registrant for the relabeling. And it's really important that you work with those chemical companies and the manufacturers and to manage that invalid product. So the manufacturer will let you know what should be done with the product at the end of the implementation period. So question arises, how do I know what products are changing? So there's a couple communication channels that are used. So first of all, registrants actively communicate with their supply chain partners. This is a regulatory requirement for them. And this is done shortly after the decision publication, and then again at the end of the implementation period. So towards the end of, if it was a label change, towards the end of those 2 years, there would be another communication from the registrants to their supply chain partners. AWSA has also started sending out e-blasts on label changes and cancellations. And so those go out through our general mailing list to all AWSA certified warehouses. The PMRA website houses both a label search tool as well as a list of recent decisions and updates. And as a result of the inclusion of this new protocol under the warehouse code, we've also created a spreadsheet for you to use. And I can take a look at that here. So this might be quite small, but you have access to the website or to access to the spreadsheet through the AWSA website. So basically what we've done is we've pulled all of the products that have gone through a decision or update in the last 2 years from that PMRA website. And we've listed them in this spreadsheet with the active ingredient registration number, the class, the registrant product name, status, so whether they're either canceled or have a label amendment, the decision date, and then we've also included the last day of sale under the old label. So for products that are going through a label change, or the last day of sale for the canceled products. So that's the last day that you are able to sell those products. And we've also included, for your awareness, the last day of use by end users. So this is just for you to help inform your clients if they are purchasing that product. So in this example of the table, I've sorted it by all products, sorted by last date of sale for canceled products. So you can see here, if we look at the top line, this product was canceled. The decision date was March 2nd, 2023. The last date of sale for that product was March 2nd, 2024. And then the last date of use by the end user was September 2nd, 2024. So this is an example of one of those products that has been expedited, right? It hasn't had the full 3-year phase out for whatever reasons. They have decided to expedite the cancellation of this product. Here's another example of a label change. In this example, I've sorted out all of the domestic products. I recognize many of you don't carry domestic products, or not many domestic products. So, and the warehouse code does not capture domestic products, but we have included them just for your awareness. So this list is sorted, removing domestic product by last date of sale under the old label. So if we look at the top line here, this product, Zoxamide, the decision date was February 9th, 2023. Last date for sale under the old label is February 8th, 2025. So after this date, that product cannot be sold with the old label. So I'm sure you're asking, how do I possibly keep track of all these dates? And let me tell you, when you see the spreadsheet, it's huge. So it seems very overwhelming. And really, the easiest way to be compliant with these requirements is to promote inventory turnover based on product age. So essentially, systems like first in, first out, or lot control can be used to track product age and promote the sale of the oldest product first. And both of these practices, whichever you choose to use, first in, first out, or lot control, should include the following aspects. So number one, putting older products at the front of the shelf and the newer products behind them with the labels facing outwards. So this ensures that the older product is taken first when fulfilling orders. And older in this context can either mean defined by lot code or by date received. That's up to you in terms of what system you use. Training employees on the importance of either first in, first out or lot control is really critical. Employees need to understand what they need to do with these products, both when stocking shelves as well as when fulfilling orders. And they have to understand why this is being done, why this is important. And lastly, posting reminders, right? So displaying both first in, first out or lot code best practices with clear signage in storage areas will help remind people when they are stocking shelves or fulfilling orders that they need to follow this protocol. So in order to demonstrate our commitment as an industry to continuous improvement and regulatory compliance, we have included a requirement for managing inventory rotation as a scored protocol under the warehouse standard. This went into effect as of January 1st of this year. So it will be warehouses that are having their audits done this year will need to be in compliance with this protocol by the end of the year. So this is in addition to the existing requirement for inventory management. And we'll just take a quick look at what that looks like. So this was the original protocol. It's protocol E14. And this is contained in bulletin 40, if you're looking for the specific bulletin where this change was introduced. So protocol E14 requires a system for managing on-site inventory by products and quantities exist. And so the amended protocol, which went into place January 1st, maintains that requirement and adds a requirement for a system of managing product rotation and product label changes. And these are both scored protocols underneath the standard. So in terms of what the auditors will be looking for, the auditors will be asking the managers of the warehouses to describe how inventories are managed to rotate inventory on a regular basis using either first in, first out or a lot control method. And they will be looking for a process of managing products with manufacturer label changes. So the auditors will review written procedures and they'll visually assess inventory for evidence of product rotation. So that is the requirement into effect as of January 1st, compliance required for those being audited this year by the end of the year. And I think, the natural question that arises is, what if my system doesn't currently track either dates or lot codes? What can I do? So certainly not my area of expertise by any stretch of the imagination, but I did ask ChatGPT what I could do to start creating a first in, first out or a lot control system if I didn't have one existing. And there was a couple suggestions that they put forward that I think are worth considering. So first is manual labeling and tracking. So using simple color-coded labels as products are received or date labels that make it very clear when products were received will allow you to visually sort those products as you're stacking your shelves. And again, employee training on the labeling system is really critical to ensure the system works. You could create a spreadsheet with dates and lots and make sure that that spreadsheet is updated frequently as well as consulted. So making sure you're constantly looking to see when those products are reaching the end of their implementation period, if they are in a cancellation or label change phase, and just making sure that you're keeping on top of your spreadsheet. You could create alerts or flags in your existing system. So one suggestion was to check for hidden fields. So if you already have a digital inventory management system, it could be existing in your software that you have a field for inclusion of a first in, first out system or a lot control system, or even just reminders on specific items. So creating those alerts and flags in your system would be useful. You could also consider just including calendar alerts for yourself. So, if you see products that are on that Excel sheet that we shared that are coming to the end of their implementation period, either because of cancellation or label changes, creating a simple calendar reminder for yourself to make sure to be checking for those products. Physical reorganization is another one. Make it easy for your employees. Make it so that shelves are only loaded from the back, and that ensures that the oldest product is pushed forward and that orders are only pulled from the front of the shelf. You could consider add-ons to your existing system. So if you already have a digital management system, a digital inventory management system, it could be that you could purchase a simple add-on to your system to include tracking. And then lastly, the creation of policy and training documents is also really important in the successful implementation of any of these systems. And ChatGPT, I have to say, is just really excellent at these tasks. I'm not, doesn't have to be ChatGPT, any AI tool will do, but in terms of creating policies and documents, really, really easy tool to use. I just asked it to very quickly develop for me a policy and a training guide for first in, first out inventory rotation. It created a 4-page document that covers, the purpose, the scope, the general guidelines, labeling, organization, planning, how to fulfill an order. Goes through all the steps that you would need in an effective policy. And then also has a training guide for employees, including a sign-off for employees once they've been trained. So I think, especially for those of you who might have limited administrative resources, AI can be a really great tool for policy and document creation. So in closing, that is the short update I wanted to provide you with today. If you have any questions about this update or any other warehousing matter, please feel free to reach out to AWSA or CropLife if the matter is more of a regulatory nature, and we'd be happy to get back to you with some answers. And as was mentioned, coming up next from CropLife in March, we have some PMRA activity updates. That'll give you a little more of a regulatory perspective and a little bit more of a deep dive on the PMRA. And that's it for me.
All right. Well, thank you, Justine. Again, if anyone has questions for Justine, you can put up your hand. And I see one from Bianca. So Bianca, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, with this new addition to the audit, does that apply to every single product that comes into our warehouse that we have to have first in, first out type of thing?
So I'm going to say yes, because you never know which products are going to be necessarily going through a label change. So it's more of a comprehensive practice that we're hoping that retailers will embed in their systems. I think it's a good inventory management practice regardless. So I would say yes. The policy should be general and the policy should apply to all products.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to remind everybody, if you're too shy to put your hand up and speak, you can put a question in the chat and I'll read it off.
In the chat or in the Q&A?
Q&A. Oh,
doesn't matter.
Right. That doesn't, you're right. Q&A. There is a Q&A and there's also a chat. I'll monitor both.
All right. Any other questions while we have Justine here? She may not want to be labeled as the expert, but she knows a lot about this topic as well as others within the manual. I think you all have the compliance manual. So if there's any questions that you want to ask of Justine, or if there's a conversation we want to start about how others are handling this within their warehouses, I see Colin Parento.
I just had a quick question on product labeling. Is there a requirement from manufacturers to ensure that the packaging has a date on it?
So you know how I said I wasn't a regulatory person?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a regulatory person, but I do think we have some regulatory people on this call. I think Terry is on this call. She probably is not happy I'm calling her out.
Terry, are you there?
Yeah, I was trying to get on camera.
Sorry.
Well, I might be speaking out of turn, Justine, but I don't think that there's a requirement that you have to have a date on the packaging. I think it would depend on how you as an organization would be deciding to track things. My understanding, though, that depending on the company that you get your product from, that those companies will usually either have some kind of tracking identifier. This could be a lot number, or sometimes it is a date, but I don't think it's uniform right now.
Colin, does that help you with the question? Oh.
Colin, your microphone or you're a little sketchy.
Or Kevin. I have Kevin asking. Are you guys hearing that sound?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is a
okay.
little jumbled.
Very broken up.
Okay, so I'm not sure if that was Colin or Kevin. I see Colin. Do you want to try to ask that one again?
Or put it in the chat.
Or put
There
it in
are-
the chat?
Yeah, there are a couple of questions there, so let me ask one of those questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still, okay.
So
I
still quite
will-
broken up.
Yeah, it is. So I'll ask one of the questions, and again, Colin or Kevin, if you can just put your question in the chat or the Q&A. So we got Brenna Knopp. How do you handle a warehouse situation that uses pallets and not shelving in terms of first in, first out?
Yeah, so I think it's the, this is the first year for this protocol, so it's certainly a learning process for us and our auditors as well. But I think the same principles apply. So if you are loading pallets into a warehouse, trying to arrange those pallets so that they're in order of how they're received, and then making sure that you're fulfilling your orders from the opposite end, right? So if, I'm envisioning a line of pallets, they come in this side and then they go out this side, so that you're still enabling some level of inventory rotation.
So does anyone want to share how they are handling that in their warehouse? Kevin Dow, I do see that you have a question, but I just want to finish up with Colin's question and with what Justine offered. Is there any other comments about what works really great? It's a sharing time that if you want to put up your hand or. Nope, that's fine too. Kevin, we can go over to you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, so it was a little bit of a comment. I'm quite certain that every product that we get into the chemical shed has either a manufacturing date or a lot number identified on it. However, one of the big nuisances or annoyances is that some of our manufacturers do not identify that on the packaging on the box on the outside. Sometimes you have to open the box and look at the code that's actually printed or stenciled directly onto the jug inside the box. So it makes it quite challenging. And so if there was some standardization around that for all manufacturers, that would be very useful. So other product, comment is that, yeah, we've always adhered to a first in, first out sort of mentality with the products, but it can be challenging with the amount of rotations of product that we have in a season. The other annoyance or challenge is we will often get product in from our warehouse, our centralized warehouse, that is older than the product, an older manufacturing date than the product that we've actually got in the shed. So it's something else to kind of keep track of. And the last stuff we get in is not necessarily the freshest product because of other returns being made from manufacturers and things like that. So, and the manufacturing date of the product being returned by customers can also be another significant challenge in our industry. So they don't always return it in the same year they purchase it. So,
Right.
Great conversation, Kevin and Justine. So Justine, is that something that you're hearing, that when the boxes don't have the dates on them or the information that's needed and they have to unpack them, like, is that a great thing to take back to the manufacturers, or is that sort of your role in this two-way communication? Or
Absolutely. I'm not making any promises. Let's just be clear. But it's certainly something we can flag with our manufacturing members, that this is something that would be helpful. It's a benefit to everybody to make sure that those older products are moving through the system, so that when we do have cancellations or relabeling activities, we don't end up with product that has to be shipped back to the manufacturer and or disposed of, right? So it's a benefit to everybody. So whatever manufacturers can do to help facilitate that process is going to help the entirety of the system. In terms of, you said, are you hearing this? We're not hearing anything yet. This just launched, right? So this is really going to be the year that we start learning and seeing where there are barriers. I hadn't thought about the fact that you might get product that should be in the middle of your inventory spectrum, right? So that's definitely something to be considerate of when auditors are reviewing these systems. So keep in mind, most of these label changes and cancellations, I say most because there are exceptions, you have that 2-year window, right? So we're not talking about 1 week to the next. You do have a 2-year window. So it's just making sure that products aren't lingering beyond that time period.
I do see in the chat from Alyssa, if chem companies could have functioning barcodes on packages and labels would make using scanning technologies easier. Alyssa, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that or if someone has a comment to add to that. Not sure.
I suspect Terry's on
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, I see Terry.
Yeah, thanks. I'd like to make a comment on that and on Kevin's comment as well. So Justine is exactly right that this is a new process. However, in CropLife, we do have a working group that's been talking about this for a couple of years now. And from our members that actually have their own warehouses and some of the bigger members, they've definitely have flagged that issue of the code not being on the box but on the jug. So I did make note of that, Kevin. I'll take that back to our group as something that I've heard more broadly as well, so we can have a little bit more of a discussion on that. Also, I know I have been talking with Myrna and Lisa just about maybe getting together with some of you folks to even dive a little bit further into some of these questions, because I think from a CropLife perspective, we have a good handle on what this sort of thing means for our members, but we definitely could use a little bit more help with what it means to you, and that will help us with our engagement with PMRA, but it also helps us with being able to serve you better as well. In terms of the barcode, yes, that's something that we've been talking about for quite a bit over the last year or so in particular, and specifically actually as it relates to this relabeling issue. So we weren't really looking at barcodes, but something very similar. We were looking at QR codes and how could we use a QR code to be able to get information out, not only to have information on when the product was manufactured, but even to get out some of this label information so that, for example, you don't have to pull product off the shelf and go relabel it. So where that is right now is that there are discussions with PMRA. Of course, nothing is as simple as, it might sound. There's certain parts of the legislation that talk about what specifically has to be on the label. And so that's part of why it's a little bit slower than normal. But as we speak right now, there's a PMRA webinar going on. And one of the things that they are going to be flagging in that webinar is a pilot that they are going to be doing with one of our companies using QR codes. So this is the first that we've actually heard about this. So I do find it's a little bit exciting in that it's the first kind of step forward from a regulatory perspective in terms of even considering it. So not saying that we're going to have it, in the next year or so, but I think that, that is where probably all industry is going, whether it's 3D barcodes or QR codes or whatever it is. Question.
Yeah, we got some, so we had somebody in the chat just recommending or reiterating that QR code would be excellent. So that's great.
I do want to just touch on one thing Terry said, though, and the conversation that we have been having is if anyone on the call today or on the meeting is interested in sitting on a committee to bring some feedback to the group that we have, please send myself or Lisa an email, and it would be a virtual call, so it would be easy to join us from anywhere in Canada, and then you can bring your perspective to that session.
I'm just going to put our emails in the chat. So if anybody wants to grab that, if they don't already have that.
Great.
And there is a question that we kind of skipped over. That's okay. Shelby, we finished that topic before I actually asked that question.
Yeah, Lisa, I might not be seeing all the questions here, so.
No problem. So I will ask that one. Do we have to get lot numbers and organize the first in and first out for previous products in the shed? Say that is over 5 years potentially?
My answer would be yes. Especially if you have products that's over 5 years old. Like I'd be concerned if that product went through any label change process, you're hitting, that label change process is a maximum of 3 years long. So, if it is beyond that, if it is captured as under a label change and it's been sitting there for 5 years, then it definitely is not eligible to be sold. So I think at the very least, a review of your existing products to make sure that they are not in a cancellation or label change implementation period would be really critical, especially given that PMRA or ROBI has flagged their intent to increase compliance activities, specifically in the agrochemical retail section.
Any other questions? Thank you, Shelby, for sharing that.
There was something again here in the Q&A. I think it's more of a comment than it is a question. It says the warehouse layout can't be changed to allow pallets to go to the back. Oh, this is back to Brianna's question that she asked earlier about the pallets. So again, the warehouse layout can't be changed to allow pallets to go to the back. We have to have an alley in the middle and the warehousing standards for spacing and layouts based on classes.
Yeah, so then I think it's your fulfillment policy that becomes really critical, right? So if the layout of the pallets is fixed, then the mechanism by which things are retrieved, I think, is going to become more important. Hopefully that answers that. Again, like I can imagine there might be a scenario where retrieving pallets from the back is going to be very difficult as well. If that is the case, then I think there's just going to be some awkward movement of product within your warehouse, especially for those products that might be in that implementation phase, right? If you have products that are going through a label change and they're at the back, you need to move those out or else they're going to have to be disposed of.
Yeah, so case in point, this morning we had 22 pallets come in to our warehouse. So to get ready for the new products coming in, the stuff we've overwintered in our warehouse, we moved them to the side to prepare for the new stuff coming in. So the new stuff went to the furthest away in the row. So that's one of the protocols we're doing. But one of the things I'd like to mention is we're truly at the mercy of the distributor or the logistics company delivering the chemical to our location. We can't just phone up and say, hey, I want all brand new product. Sometimes we'll get a repalletized products that are 3 years old already. And so we have to be really on our game to try and identify the age of the product. I don't want to mention any names, but to be aware that we need to make sure that goes out. And another comment with first in, first out, it's a great plan. So a farmer picks up 10 cases of product, and at the end of the season, he returns 3. And another farmer, just because he's first out doesn't mean it's not coming back to our shed. So that's another thing that we have to worry about after season is return products, because a lot of products can't be frozen. So the farmer's returning the product to go back into our heated storage. So again, that's almost another protocol in itself to deal with that. Just because it's the first out doesn't mean it's not coming back in.
Yeah,
So,
that's a fair point. That's a fair point for sure. Yeah. No, we realize that the supply chain is very complex and there's a lot of movement of products. And this is kind of another side project that we're working on at CropLife, is to try and raise some awareness of this with PMRA, the complexity of movement of this product, so they have a better understanding how difficult it may be to find products that need relabeling within the system. But I take your point for sure. And to be clear, from an AWSA perspective, our auditors are not going to be like, well, that bottle's not in the right place, so you fail this protocol. That's certainly not our intent, right? We're looking for a policy and a procedure and some training of staff that a process has been implemented to make best efforts to move product out.
A couple more things here. So someone was asking, they had some bad connections. So I'm just going to reiterate, yes, this recording will be sent out. Sorry, Myrna, did you have something? There's another question though in the chat.
You go ahead.
Okay. So Brian is asking, does anyone know if distributors generally show lot numbers or package dates on their bills of lading?
I have no
What?
idea personally. So I'm going to rely on the audience to answer that one.
Does anyone have an answer to that question? I'm not going to point finger at you, Mark, but I don't know if anyone else. Do you want to state the question again, maybe?
I can.
Yeah, so a lot of the a lot of them will have a lot number. Like I know New Farm, for example, they'll have a lot number. I think Bayer is really good on lot numbers. Most of them will have a lot number below what that product line is. We have a couple distributors that will send stuff that even, it might be a split pallet or whatever, and there will be, okay, this many cases of this lot number and this many cases of that lot number. So it's just making sure that you know what the dates are for those like what the lot number actually means in terms of their labeling system, but they're usually are fairly good on bills of lading just from their own tracking purposes.
Thank you.
I see Kevin. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. There many products they are listed, but I'm actually looking at some recent documentation, and not all products have a lot number listed on the bill of lading for the products we're getting in. So for instance, I've got a big shipment of Roundup that came in, and there's lot numbers assigned with all of those. Although there was another point I was going to make is quite often either the lot number or the code that's on the outside of boxes are kind of a they're coded, right? They're not specific on what the date is, so you have to understand what or get that manufacturing date for that lot number from the manufacturer. Whereas other products just actually have a very clear manufacturing date, month, year on it actually. So some are and some aren't. Again, it's another area that would be really good to have some standardization created in the system.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. We can definitely take that back to our membership for awareness.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's a great statement. If some companies are doing it and others are not, then a standardized process would be helpful for all retailers, I'm assuming.
And I'll just reiterate, there doesn't seem to be a standard because someone made a comment that they do not receive lot numbers on their bill of lading for chemical products. Another question here, how will we access the spreadsheet that references label changes and track dates, etc.?
So it's on the AWSA website currently. So if you go to the AWSA website and navigate to the warehouse program, I believe it's under the resources tab.
I will see if I can quickly get that and maybe put it in the chat.
Yeah, so it's under the resources tab. It has a note at the top of it. It is currently locked, just so you don't make any accidental mistakes, but there's no password or anything. So you just go up to the top of the Excel menu and there's a thing that says unlock or unprotect, I think, and that'll free it up so that you can sort all the columns how you want.
So it's an interactive one. So when you were doing sorting, that wasn't just you behind the scenes being able to do that.
No.
Anyone has access to that. Okay.
No, like the headers, each of the headers of those columns has a drop-down menu. So you can either select specific items or you can sort by date, alphabetical, however you want to sort it, manufacturer, whatever you want to sort any of those columns. That's all. You can do that all in the Excel sheet.
Are there any other questions around accessing that list and working with it? Oh, Lisa, are there any other questions in the chat?
There is. I just have to sort them because some are going into as comments. Let me go over here.
So I see one here. How are we able to see if a product a customer returns needs a new label? So I would just go into that Excel sheet and look for the product. So you can use the little drop downs at the top of the columns, find the product or sort it alphabetically and find the product. If If it's not there, then it's not in a label change or cancellation process. Like, the only things in that spreadsheet are things that are going through either a cancellation or a label change implementation period. And it's, I want to say about like 25-ish active ingredients that are in that list right now. Obviously many more products, but that's about what's there.
There's just a couple more comments in the chat if no one can see them. It says printed manufacturer dates on boxes would be ideal. Scanning QR codes may be cumbersome when trying to restack or combine multiple shipments for winter storage. And another comment, seeds typically have lot numbers, but not all crop protection products do. This does not apply universally to crop protection. So again, it just goes back to that still some work on the standardization. I see a hand up with Stacy.
Hi. So to clarify my question, so say a product was undergoing a label change while the grower had it in their shed, and then they returned that product after the fact. Like, how do we know? So every product that comes into our shelves, we will always have to review. Like, it just seems really hard to be able to know, like, what if the customer returned a 2-year-old product and in that time there was a label change? How, as a retailer, are we supposed to know that? Like, know that that label on the box that they're returning is not the updated label.
Yeah, so it's a matter of sleuthing through the Excel sheet, to be honest. Like, you'll have to, if a farmer has something, goes through a label change, returns to you, and it's outside of the implementation windows, meaning that it can't be sold without the new label, then that product has to either be disposed of or go back to the manufacturer. So then your best point of contact is the manufacturer to see what to do with that product. So unfortunately, I think in that example, you would have to go to that list, find the product, see if it's gone through a label change, see if it's outside of the implementation period. So that's that 2-year window, and then make a decision. And I realize that that's onerous, but it's better than accidentally selling that product and having a compliance issue with Roby.
Terry, I see you have your hand up. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. While you were saying it, I did mention that we at CropLife have our own working group and that we're trying to kind of come up with a lot of these sort of scenarios. That's one that we actually haven't discussed at least amongst the registrants. And so I'd just like to take the opportunity to flag Myrna's earlier comment that about how useful it would be to be able to brainstorm these a little bit more with some of you so that we have a really good understanding of all of the different complexities of such a request. So that would be my first comment. My second comment is more around this whole idea of relabeling to begin with. So why AWSA is coming out with this now, it's not just to make everybody's life a little bit more complex. It's because the PMRE has recently, I think it was about 2 years ago, had come up with a new interpretation of registrant responsibilities after a reevaluation that results in a label amendment. And part of this was that all of the product in the value chain had to be relabeled. And so this is what we are currently trying to grapple with. It's hugely expensive. It's very complex. We're still having lots of discussions with PMRA on the necessity of it. That being said, they are interacting with a lot of you while they're doing this. And this is where the first in, first out type of management style is very useful. I mean, it's a good best management practice to begin with, but it is very useful. Now, why am I bringing any of this up? It's because the PMRA will be reviewing their policy on this within some time. I mean, the date keeps getting pushed, but let's just say in 2025. When they do, it's going to be very important for them to have a really good understanding of the impact of them making this change. And so there is an impact for registrants, but there's an impact down the line as well, in terms of, what is realistic and what is not realistic, and how does that compare to the actual risk that they're trying to address. So when that time comes, I will reach out to Myrna, and hopefully we can have some discussions as to how can we bring the retailer and distributor perspective to that public consultation when it comes.
I'll just going to interject. I'm going to reiterate that, yeah, we'll reach out when that time comes to our members. So if you're not a member, we won't know how to get a hold of you. So become a member, or, let us know who you are so that we can reach out to you.
Well, and we do have member alerts. It's called our Member Insider that goes out to members only. And so that is a really great way to get information. Exactly like what Terry and Justine were talking about. We do also send it out to everyone who gets our network newsletter that goes out every 2 weeks. So make sure you're on that list. You can join through the website. So those are the two ways that we do get this critical information out to both members and the general ag, retail, and supplier industry. Any other question? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to say there's a comment that I was just going to, it's not so much a question, but more a comment that was in the chat. In our shed, we use discretion on returns. If a product is clearly old, out of date, or the condition of the box is not something that we could happily resell, we will not take the return. Our general policy is that returns must happen within the year that the product is sold to the customer. So again, some best practices that some retailers are adhering to. Also going to say that in the chat, Justine did post the link to that spreadsheet. So if you want to go into your chat, you can get that link there. And now we have Dave, Mark Davey, my apologies, who has another comment or question.
Is there any work being done at the wholesale level where a lot of the products are gathered before they're shipped to the retail locations? Because they'll have multiple products to ship to us, but they'll be in greater quantities. Is there any effort on their part to identify, those product amendment label changes or products with, 5 birthdays on it? Or is there any effort before it even comes to the retail sector and getting whatever we get? Is there any effort being done at that level?
So I will say, and it looks like Terry has something to add here, but those sites are also captured by the AWSA warehouse requirements. So they're going to be subject to the same FIFO lot control consideration. So they should be adhering to these practices themselves. Terry?
Yeah, I agree with that. They should be doing that as well. I think one of the requirements from our members as registrants is that when PMRE does come out with a decision to change the label, they have a requirement to notify stakeholders of that change. And so sometimes this is them sending out their own emails. Sometimes it's the email blast that comes out from AWSA saying that there's a change. I know when it's AWSA, they usually, and our members too, they usually come out shortly after the decision, but then closer also to the end of the implementation period. Where it gets tricky though is, and this is at least tricky for our members, is that they know where the product is when it's the person that they sold it to or the company that they sold it to. But you can imagine as that person then distributes it to somebody else, our members don't always have the contact information for all of those other people further on down the chain to find out where all the product has been after they've sold it. This is part of the reason why we did start with the AWSA e-blast. I don't know when it was, Justine, a few years ago anyways. But again, it's trying to get the information out as quickly and as many times as we can, including to those wholesale warehouses.
I don't
Any
have
other
any
questions?
There's nothing more in the chat or the Q&A, and I know that we're coming up on 2 o'clock, but happy to address any more questions.
Well, I do want to remind you, and if a question comes up, fantastic. But if you are interested in being involved in sharing perspectives and best practices, please let me know. And Lisa, as I mentioned, or she mentioned, put my email in the chat. Also, if there's interest in attending, we have our two next sessions set for March 13th with Terry and Paul with CropLife talking a little bit more about PMRA's activities. And then we do have Greg Bartley on behalf of Keep It Clean, and that will be on April 3rd. But if there's other topics or if there's other things keeping you up at night or other conversations that you want to have, and we need to bring in an expert to sort of dispel myths or at least just hear the straight facts from the regulating body, whether that be on seed, fertilizer, crop protection, please let us know, because then we'll be able to organize that. Is this time of day good? We do need to sort of keep all across Canada something to think about on time zones. And again, any other ideas or thoughts? In our 30th anniversary year, we want to try to get as much information out to you as possible that's relevant, and in particular, working with our partner organizations like AWSA and CropLife, who have been fantastic to work with.
Yeah.
So.
I know some people are already dropping off, but I just want, there's a couple more things in the comments. It says for custom applicators that have just have part jugs of products, how does FIFO and inventory management apply?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to answer that quickly before it cuts off. Yeah, that's an interesting one. So I guess you're thinking about a situation where you'd have a part jug that might be newer than an older product. I think you're probably better off to still use the part jug first. The part jug is going to be older, so the idea is to use the older product before using new product. So I would think that that is still a best practice to use the open jug before using the new ones.
And Justine did put her email in the chat, so if anybody wanted to chat directly with her, you can grab her email address from the chat. This looks like a top-down policy, and I feel for. Sorry, it looks like a top-down policy, and I feel for better management. Manufacturers need to start this process and have it in place for retailers for retail to manage. And then Colin is looking for the spreadsheet. I noticed that there are only 3 items listed as agriculture. Is this likely that there are other products that we will need to pay attention to outside of the outside those that are registered as agriculture?
Yeah, so most agricultural products, like as per how they're used, are registered as commercial. I don't know why those ones specifically, so that's exactly verbatim from the PMRA website, but agricultural products are commercial products, and then domestic products are your household products. So I would say it's everything but domestic you want to be looking at there.
All right, well, this has been fantastic. Thank you. Again, we'll continue to look at the chat if there's questions that we need to send out. This is going to be recorded, and Lisa will be sending to everyone who registered, will be sending a link so that you can watch this or forward it, and then hopefully housed on our website at some point in the future. So thanks again. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thanks everybody.
Everyone.
Thank you, Justine. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Justine. Yes.
I think you can just end the meeting, Lisa.
So I will.
Yeah, okay.